deeply appreciating the opportunity provided by Mr. Hassan Ragab. He is one of the famous architects. He's basically stated in California from background and back to Egypt, and he's one of the most interesting and eye-catchy architects available now, who is actually harvesting the artificial intelligence technologies more in the architecture and also in the artistics part of it. And we are very glad and lucky by his generosity to provide us with his presentation. And he will present us around 45 minutes about the very interesting topics about the artificial intelligence application in the architectural design, and leaving the mic for you, Mr. Hassan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Firas. Let me start by sharing my screen. Uh, Firas, I
Go
cannot.
ahead.
Oh,
Yep.
do it. Yeah.
Now you can try. Thank you.
Uh, okay. You should be now seeing my PowerPoint presentation. No.
Yes, we are seeing your picture.
Okay. You can see like the PowerPoint, right? The bias and identity in design, art, and architecture in the age of AI. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Firoz, and thank you, Nashwa, for having me. Hello, everybody. Um, yeah, thank you. Like Firoz gave me like an intro. Hopefully, like I don't think I deserve like all his kind words. Um, um, I don't know actually. Like I have no idea what I'm doing with my life right now. Like I have a background in architecture and design. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about my background. But I think when we're talking about AI, I'm really not sure if anybody kind of still kind of figured out what they're doing really, or what we're doing with this technology. So it's an extremely disruptive technology, not only in architecture but also like basically um, in everything that we do. Like um, and there's a lot of potentials and also a lot of risks about using AI. And I find myself like in this kind of an intersection between different disciplines. And today I'm here to share with you some of basically my philosophy and my ideology. I can say that it's kind of related to architectural design per se, or like it has a direct relation with like the industry or the discipline as I was practicing it at least like 2 or 3 years ago. But basically, I'm here to kind of tell you like what I'm up to, really. Um, Before we start, a little bit about me. I'm from Alexandria, Egypt. I graduated from the Faculty of Fine Arts in 2010. I didn't like the school very much, but I like two things about the school, or like I actually like two things about architecture, which was like at least that was like an interesting topic. But the two of them were architectural theory and history, and computational design. At that point in 2009, computational design was not that thing in the world, not alone in Egypt. So when I graduated, I had the opportunity to work in exhibition design and in museography for a studio that was in Alexandria, in Egypt. It's called Shoburi and Associates. Um, I stayed there for about 5 years, or like a little bit short of 6 years, and it was a small studio, so it was a very interesting um, studio where we did everything ourselves, meaning that we were like 4 or 5 people. I think at one point we were maximum of 7 people, where everybody kind of did everything. So we met with clients, we took the briefs, even like as junior architects, which is something that would rarely happen in the architectural world. So basically, we took the briefs and developed schematic designs, developed concepts, developed shop drawings, and talked with other trades in the practice. We did mount making, and we did also installation, and we talked with curators. We talked with art collectors. So it was a very very well-rounded experience that kind of showed me basically everything I don't know that I know about the practice. But again, I was really interested in computational design, so I quit my job like after like 5 or 6 years, and in 2016, I started to have my own design studio that was kind of focused on developing or like basically learning through doing, learning computational design and digital fabrication through basically making furniture, and that lasted for 2 years, but unfortunately it didn't go very well, and I had to shut down the studio. And then in 2018, I moved to the United States and I worked as 4 years in computational design as well. But this time I worked in the construction side. So I only worked on one project as part of my company, which is called Martin Bros. And we developed like the Lucas Museum of Narrative Arts. So we were developing the structure system, and we were installing the facades. You can see like the white panels right there. And this was really like a very, very interesting project. But unfortunately, again, it wasn't really creative for me. It was like really like on the engineering side. So basically, like writing codes and developing formulas and using grasshoppers to create all kind of like systems to facilitate the installation and the fabrication of these parts of like the structural system. And at that point, you work at like one of like yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this project is by Med Architects. Like Med Architects, they are like the Mayang Son, the Chinese architect, and it's in downtown Los Angeles. And yeah, again, this was one of the most interesting projects that one could work on. But again, like at that point, I started to kind of have like a lot of questions about like design philosophy, basically, like what I'm creating, what's the point of like computational design, and what's the point of that really. So although like I spent a lot of years, like at least 4 years, like working on that project, I don't know, it wasn't really attractive for me, at least that the discipline, or like basically like I don't know, I didn't like architecture very much at that point, I have to say. And I was looking for something else, and I was doing so many things. I started my own studio like two, three times before when I failed while working on that project. Until one point in 2022, I started working with big large language model like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. And I don't know. I think at one point I got really hooked on them because I found like this might be the answer to my questions. Like, yeah, maybe now I can start to develop like or start to explore new visual vocabulary that's basically like telling me more about like what architecture means, or like discovering new forms. I don't know. It was, I think for me, they seemed like something that I've never seen before. And before I get into this lecture, basically one thing that I like to mention, especially in lectures that are for students. I don't know, especially if you're new, or like if you're not new with AI, or however you wanna, um, whatever like your position with AI right now, is that like text to image is not basically architecture. So whatever images that you might see on, like I don't know, my Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever you see in this presentation, these are not architecture. These are like concepts, or maybe they're more related to art than it is architecture. And this difference is really important because these are not designs; these are just concepts. And another thing is that architecture does not necessarily equals to architects. So architects are not the entire discipline of architecture. At least that's how I see it. They are just a part of it. They are just architects are just a medium who are like making other elements of architecture kind of works together nicely. So architects are responsible for like putting together like a good um, formula that's connecting the site, that's connecting the budget, that's connecting the program, that is connecting the client needs, that like that's connecting like a time ideology that's somebody won't implement. And that's like a really important question. So architecture is much bigger than architects themselves. Architects are just one element of it. And the final thing is that AI is not a threat to a to visual art, but it might be a threat to some visual artists. By that I mean, like right now, I do a lot of conceptual artworks that I wasn't doing like 2 or 3 years ago. Somebody else was doing it, but now because of AI, it gave me the ability to be able to do it. So with that in mind, I think like AI is not necessarily threatening a discipline, or not necessarily um, threatening something. It's threatening someone. It's threatening people. Uh, In that case, I'm talking about like the artist. At the same time, I don't think there's a danger, necessarily a danger from a direct danger from AI on architecture, but it might be on architects themselves. And maybe what I'm talking about, it will make sense like at the end of the lecture, but we might also talk about it later on. But one other thing that like a lot of people keep asking me is like, what is like the way to use AI? What's the best way to use AI? How do you write like such a great prompt? So like, what is the way to such a great prompt? Like, how do you create a prompt? And it's actually like nothing. There is no secret ingredient about writing prompts. There's no secret ingredient about using AI in general. Like I teach AI, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense because the thing about AI, like things are changing really, really quickly. And you can see that like even from like comparing like one single model. So what you can see here in the presentation, there are 4 images, and this is only from Midjourney. So you have a lot of uh, text to image software, but this is only Midjourney developed over like only 1 year. And you can see how the prompts and how the resolution and how the details they keep on changing. So in a way, if you took a workshop with me, like in the winter of 2022, by the time you get to the summer 2023, this workshop will basically be obsolete if you're only focusing on how to write a prompt or like how to create an image like me. So basically, there is not a direct way, or is like one way to write a prompt or one way to approach that. And again, this is a challenge for us as architects because we're always focusing on the process, but now the process kind of changes drastically, and like to deal with that we're still figuring this out, like um again, like, and also like it's not only like about images but also like about videos and how you can use them, and or how you can utilize them, and how you use them again depends on when are you using them. So again, this is like only, so this is some kind of an evolution for like Stable Diffusion starting from the summer of 2022 ending by December 2023, which is this last video. Again, um, everything about creating animation using AI has changed quite drastically, and I haven't even mentioned what happened this year, which again, it's another leap. But again, like for me, why I use AI in the first place, or like my philosophy of using AI, it's not about really trying to find the ultimate process, but actually trying to find some form of like a different or alternative visual vocabulary. And like a good example with that will be Zaha Hadid, which one way when she, like if you're thinking about like how our discipline or kind of change, or like what is the pinnacle of like the architectural world right now, will be like computational design, and what promise does it lead, or like what is actually the implementation that we have from the design right now. And one of the leaders for that is Zaha Hadid. And Zaha, she actually didn't start from like the normal architectural practice to get her new vocabulary, but actually started from the Russian art. And like you can see here like how this is like a Malkovich painting, and it's kind of now Zahadi now transferred into like her own like another vocabulary that's mixing architecture and art. And then you get to start out by her old building, and after that she's starting to influence a lot of architects. One of them is Med Architect, who's actually built like the Lucas Museum. And in that sense, that's basically what I've been trying to do. Is like I think like the AI tools were the perfect kind of mix and match to mix architecture and, I don't know if you want to call it art, but basically you can use different concepts and mix and mash between like different architectural styles and architecture, or like basic different art styles and architecture, to get this visual vocabulary. And at one point, I think I was kind of, I don't know. I think I felt like good about myself at one point, because after like so many trials in 2022, like in September, August 2022, my artwork got on the cover of the AEC magazine, which is basically like a construction or like engineering magazine. And at that point, I think, yeah, maybe I'm onto something. Maybe I'm really trying to break down this like new vocabulary. Um, and there's a lot of ways that you can push this through. So like with every new concept that I worked on, or like I saw other people kind of working or challenging, like the normal, like the boundaries of architecture, now you start to get more away from architecture and the architecture discipline and what that means in order to capture like this new vocabulary. But at that point, like things might start to kind of lose sense. Like, okay, so now what I'm really doing, what architectural vocabulary is like really important. And I think at one point again, this kind of brought me back to like my interest in architecture history, and trying to understand what these like big models are capable to do. And like being an Egyptian architect, I feel like very lucky because now you have a lot of you know I don't know references or resources about history and about the architecture that kind of starts that can might like start to formulate this kind of new vocabulary and that we can use AI for. Um, and what's interesting about Egypt is that you have like so many layers of history, but quite often, like when you look at the, like these difference of like points in time, like the history points, they are always studied in isolation, and we can't really kind of figure out what is really an Egyptian vocabulary or what is like an Egyptian visual vocabulary that kind of representing the current Egyptian character, like say a person. With AI, you can really do that, and you can do that in a very abstract or a very non-scientific way. And for me, the way that I like to look about identity is that like it's not like where we were, but actually who we are and what we can do right now, and what how we can perceive history right now. And to be honest with you, I don't know at that point what I'm creating here. Is this like design or this is art? And I really don't care. What I really care about is like how do I see like the how how I'm trying to find like this visual vocabulary on one hand, but on the other hand, it's not only my point of view, but also like because I'm using this tool and this tool has a data set, so this tool is also helping me use the creative part. So I need to also understand how it's perceiving like Egypt or like how it's perceiving the subject at hand in general. So if you can see here again, this in this example, this is um, the development or like me trying to understand how the models understands like hieroglyphics like over time. So the image on the left here, this was in 2022 again. So this is like early Midjourney, where it really didn't understand hieroglyphics. So like you could never produce hieroglyphics with Midjourney at that point. And then you can start like they now started to generate some hieroglyphics in 2023, and then from that point on, we can take that and try to make I don't know, kind of change the idea of hieroglyphics themselves and try to kind of find like this new visual vocabulary that's now not necessarily related to architecture but in art at large. And there's so many things that we can create from like the history of Egypt and like how like the models kind of understand them with time. So these are like one of the earlier kind of sorry, this is one of the earlier like experiments where like trying to find out like how like the Egyptian styles are represented within um within like the tools within the AI tools. And this kind of leads to one project that I've been working on for about like 2 or 3 years, um, and I'm still working on it as we speak. Which is it's called The City is a Tram, which is like again it's an artistic series that's kind of investigating the urban environment of Alexandria through um, through the tram. And this is like one of the most I think this is my favorite work that I've ever did in my life, and I've exhibited this in so many places. And I even had like a solo exhibition last month in Alexandria, featuring only this actually this month. Yeah, I guess like it was in November. Um, so again, like again, this is like again a lot of potential about like how we can, or for me at least, this has helped me to look at the urban environment of Alexandria in a different way as an architect. As architects, we often look at things from like a very architectural way. We don't we look at the city as, yeah, this is not a good building, this is a bad building, this is like in a good condition, this has a historical significance. But actually, like looking at architecture from an artistic and an urban designer view, it gives you like another depth. And with AI, now you can add like all these different layers, which makes things like really interesting, in my opinion. And again, like now, like with AI, it's not only a matter of trying to design, but also like it's a matter of like an observation or like trying to analyze something. And again, that's like sometimes what art can be for. And like for me as an architect, there was a missing connection, always a missing connection between an architecture and like in the current practice. One of them is that like the decision of beauty and how we define beauty. And this is like an interesting question, not only like outside of AI, but also like it's very important to look at it within an AI perspective because um, like defining beauty and defining the biases inside the AI is something that that's in my opinion it's it's overlooked drastically in a drastic way. And I think like studying places like Cairo or Alexandria or like many places that it basically might not be architecture appealing, where like most architects won't really care about one, where you won't teach you at school, even like in Egypt, unfortunately. But there's a lot of things that we can learn from these elements, and the only way we can learn is first by observing like the different relationships between people and the cities and their like living environments. This is not only in Egypt, but also like even like in California now, there's like a great um, um, homelessness issue that's like being formulated, and I think again there's like a big divorce between the architects and the situation that's happening within the American cities, and again using AI could help us like, or at least it's kind of helping me like navigating through these connections, like what connects like the current economical changes, or like what is connecting the political changes with the architectural theme away from the capital and away from like the fancy buildings of the BRK entrance. And I think like there's a lot of dynamics that is exceeding, or like a lot of things that we can learn as architects from these elements. Not as just like, yeah, let's study this facade, no, but like studying the dynamics and how people deal with their cities. um and that's kind of inspiring another connection. This is called the city, and again the city is like I don't know, it's a way to kind of, for me it's a way like to utilize AI to juxtaposition architecture in different positions, like to try, it's a way for me to try to look at it in a different way, again for the sake of like finding a vocabulary that kind of makes sense, that is better than the one that I don't know, that I don't like right now. And but also there's like also like there are more applications, like there are more direct applications to how to use AI, and some of them, like one of them is that like this is a project that I did for a company in Germany. If you can see here, all the images, they were 3D renderings that the company kind of provided for me, and they wanted to create a model or like an animation, the one that you can see on the left, that is based off, or like basically it's morphing between the different restrooms that they have provided. And for me to do that is that I gathered like all the images that they've sent, and I trained the model, and then I used this stable diffusion like to morph between the images. This was done in 2023. Also, there's a lot of applications right now for like Texas 3D. They are not great, and the examples that you see right here, they are from last year, or this one even is from 2022. But now, like Texas 3D is something that like people are trying to incorporate it into their workflow, but again, it's not really available for everybody, and it's not like working great. There's also so many ways that you can connect, like models. So here, this example, this is like grasshopper model, and then it was connected to stable diffusion, and then there was one, like through this morphing, like there's one form that I decided that I like, and then through different iterations, you can get like the 3D printed. Yeah, and it's also like AI again. I think it's like breaking me from the boundary being an architect, and now I do a lot of um, conceptual art for different companies. So this is a project that I did for a company in San Diego that's developing like software applications. These videos are for a video clip that was supposed to release by an Egyptian uh, pop star, but it wasn't actually didn't really work. And this is an artwork that I did. Like this is based off like my connection to the city that I did for like an installation that I had um, Cairo and Alexandria. It's actually also for Kitzk in Berlin, I guess. Um, this is like a project that I kind of, I don't know, that basically I was designing like a patterns, a competition, like I did it like it was Grasshopper in 2018 for like swimwear, and then I utilized these patterns last year and connected it like with AI to generate like this generative facades that's like basically like Islamic, but like in a brutalist way, which is like giving me a different mode. So it's again, it's a different way to how you can incorporate AI with like basically architecture conceptualization or like even design if you want to. This is a project I did for a client in Dubai, which basically they wanted to create a facade or like a hoarding board, and then we visualized that, or like we fabricated, we produced like a 3D model, and then this will be fabricated at some point. And I'm also very lucky to take part in a lot of like exhibitions, and basically now some in many um, events or situations. I became an artist, so I don't think I am really. And I've been lucky to showcase like my work in like a lot of countries around the world. And yeah, basically to kind of end that and like to open more conversation that we can have together. Um, there's a lot of things that I really like. One second. A lot of things that um, there are like basically like these three things that I always like to talk with students about. Um, one thing is that like if you're an architect, like I'm not a fan of like being pro AI 100% or like anti AI 100%. I think that, however, I think that everybody needs to learn about AI, especially architects. And the best way to do so is that you learn these tools and you see how you can fit them within your workflow. So you don't have to enforce them into what you do, but you just like study the tools and see if you can incorporate them in what you do and whatever that you do. But if you don't like AI, that's fine, but at least you need to learn about it. In my And that's because I think young architects will be the most vulnerable when I now here. If I said if a change ever came, I think when change will come is the right word, and that's because I think like the young architects right now, when you graduate from school and you work in an architectural office, what you start with for like several years probably is doing like, a very technical work. So you will do like visualization or rendering, or you'll start like solving like parking lots or do something that's not really creative. And unfortunately, actually, most architects don't get the chance to be creative at all. And with AI is eliminating a lot of the technical abilities. So now you can use AI as a rendering software, actually. And there are a lot of AI tools right now that can help with like schematic design and with blueprints. And what that means is that for the architectural firm, instead of hiring like 10 young architects, now it will hire one or two maximum. So AI, if when AI starts to replace jobs, it'll start with like in AI in architecture. Maybe that's happening right now. I'm not sure, but I know a lot of architecture offices are now using AI. So now, like from if I am like the owner of like an office, it will make sense for me not to hire 10 people or only hire one, and AI will do the other work for the nine architects. It will do it like much cheaper and much quicker and even much more accurate. So I think like I don't know, every time that I see a young architect, I'm really pushing them. Please, you need to learn about this because um we don't know how the future will change, and like your position again, things are changing and we're not sure what's gonna happen. And the final thing is that I would like to like that I'm really interested in is basically like addressing the overlooked flags of using AI as a creative tool. One of them is the inclusion of architectural heritage in machine learning processes, and that's because I think there is like a generic theme. I don't know if you're on social media, you will notice that with AI, almost everything kind of looks the same, and that's basically because everybody want to generate like a good quality images, and if you want to generate a good quality images, you need to stick to certain styles that like these models that are kind of trained on. So um, bias is something that's really important and it needs to be um, looked upon and needs to be really studied within like AI and even without AI, because again, you go around the cities right now and you can't see any like visual sensibility or like any identity in anything. And AI could be a potential to unlock, this new vocabulary that I'm looking for in the identity, or like, something that is, for me, it's meaningful. But on the other hand, it could be very dangerous to use AI to eliminate all that and to have like a generic style. So um, I think like studying AI and like looking for identity and heritage within these tools is something that's really important. And if you're a young architect who are using AI, you don't want to be caught into this generic style that I'm talking about. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. Deeply appreciate. Ladies, can we have any question in your head about the topics provided, thankfully, by Mr. Hassan? Any question, ladies? Anything? Ms. Nashwa, can you help me with the questions? Okay. Mr. Hassan, Yumna is here asking what type of software you use to make the images you gain from the AI animated. Thank you.
Well, I use different images. So like the most the tools that I use the most are Stable Diffusion and the Midjourney. For animation, well, sometimes I literally use like Runway and Numa, but one of the most I don't know, the most used tool is like the D4M and CompuY, the Anime Defense like CompuY. But also there's like a lot of tools. I'm trying to use like basically everything that I like to use. But like if, for example, the video that you see frozen on the screen here for some reason, yeah, this is like basically Midjourney, and then it was again. It was upscaled through like different softwares. I don't remember which one, but then it was run inside Runway or
Mr. Hassan, we have another question from one of the attendants here. He's saying that, and I quote, when using AI to create or generate something, do you work on the mass first?
um, it's not the same process. No, it starts with an idea. Sometimes it even starts with a feeling, or something. It needs to be something that's completely unrelated to architecture. Maybe like I don't know what you mean about mass, but let me go back here to the
I do
slides.
believe that like if you sketch conceptual mass or basic forms using SketchUp or Revit conceptual mass and then send it to AI in order to enhance it and develop it. If
Yeah,
you are familiar, if you're familiar with the Prom AI, it is well known
yeah, yeah.
by this technique.
Yeah, well, basically, yeah, sometimes I use like control net over like basically you want to sketch something in 3D and then like use control net, whether in like Chrome AI or basically I use Stable Diffusion and control nets within these tools. Yes, sometimes I do that, but the forms that you see here mostly no. Uh, but again, that's the power of AI. The AI is, or like I like to use AI to come up with things that I wouldn't come up with using like traditional tools in massing. So I don't know, you can see like in this geometry, like in this image in the middle, like this geometry again, it's very very topological, but again you can see it's dynamic, but it's not, and it's very very irregular. And that's something that I wouldn't have done with Grasshopper, or like maybe I wouldn't have thought about that level of details of Grasshopper. Of course, yeah, you can break this down into like I don't know, maybe like hexagonal panels, and then like you can start working with it. But with AI, it actually makes like very very interesting forms. Like I don't know, like this one you can see here, like these forms. Yeah, again, you can generate that, but not with that intricacy, or like not with that complexity, or not with that mess. So, um, like or here basically, there's no massing here, right? Like there's no way that I can think about it. So yeah, and like I like to use AI not as a rendering tool. The way that you describe it is that it's like a rendering tool. I don't like to use it as a rendering. Sometimes I do, but I don't prefer to.
Another question from here, Ms. Noor is Yep. Yep. Ms. Noor here is also wondering in the level of the images you just you presented for us is just reflecting a high realistics details in it. While if you know normally jumped into the mid journey and try to get this results, usually you get some kind of a jittering or a kind of a disfiguring sometime for the specifically that you have a significant amount of a human figure in the image. So she is wondering how you can get this realistics, whether they're on the design itself and the detail, or in the figure themselves used in the images.
It I use a lot of iterations, so it's not like the first image that I get from Midjourney that I use. No, like I get up an image from Midjourney and then I start work with it a little bit, or like Stable Diffusion, and then I usually upscale it like some softwares. One of them is called Magnifique AI, um, or like there's another one which called Buzz. There's another one it's called like there's one inside Comfy, one inside Stable Diffusion, and so yeah, I don't know. Like they say, like it's like it seems realistic, but for me, it doesn't look realistic. Sometimes it's like you can see a lot of I don't know where is it. Uh, I hope it's more realistic actually. So I don't know, but again, like the process for me, it's not only just like I don't take the images out of the journey and just use them directly. They go through a lot of processes. Sometimes even I use Photoshop, and like I use like whether like upscalers inside Photoshop, like the generative refill, or just I do collages of it. So it's not like an entirely 100% AI process. It's like it's a process that's like accumulated in different ways.
That's another question from Ms. Nashwa.
It's a comment that, especially this slide, Hassan, um, I could feel the soul of, أو مثلا نقول the spirit of Alexandria, I think. الترام بشوفه كتير في Alexandria, صح؟
Yeah, it's about
This is what I loved about the work, that it shows real emotions about different perspective in the same city, and I can feel that it's more realistic. It doesn't show an AI image like Ms. Noor mentioned. You can feel that there is no let's say a default. مش بنقول default، احنا مشكلة انه يكون في عندنا شغلة غلط مبينة. It's
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah,
It's
the
more realistic.
kind of high consistency and very similarity to the original
Yes.
urban fabric of the city, capturing the spirits of the city itself.
And
It
this is
was
what-
super successful. That's what
Yes.
she meant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you don't mind me asking, how far we think we are from getting some parts of the 3D images, sorry, some part of the images, mainly those facades you did in the previous slide, how far away from getting them back to the 3D images or 3D files? You think we are soon to reflect these 2D designs into a 3D images one day?
You mean like using AI, or you mean without AI?
Yes.
Yes. So if
With
this
AI?
design, this designs that can we get them one day, you think, soon, as back as a 3D files?
Well, I mean, I can model them right now. That's not the problem, right? Like whether with AI or not,
Beauty.
in my opinion. I mean, um, I'm
Do you
not
think
in a
AI have this tool? It will have this tool later?
probably, yeah, I think probably. I don't know when, but I think it would. Um, Again, I worked it like like I worked it as a computational design in construction. So like basically it's the same thing. If you look like before Grasshopper, nobody would thought like that we can generate this kind of complicated geometry, right? And then we managed to do so, and we keep on breaking the level of like how we can uh use different like tools within, like whether it's like encoding, Grasshopper, like BIM or whatever, and you keep on layering and layering all these tools to kind of fabricate something in 3D. With AI, you probably can say that, and you can say that, and I think we are getting closer, because you can see how there was a leap this year in the AI video, like with Runway and Duma. There wasn't that consistent. Like the images were not that consistent last year, and that means that now you can start to get like what you call them like a Gaussian splatting, which now they can, like AI models can understand from one picture like different positions of the model, and now they can predict the model. So I think, yes, we will get closer. Again, I'm not a developer, so I don't know when or how. I know everybody's working on it since like 2 or 3 years ago. Like I talked with a lot of researchers from Berkeley, from MIT, from Autodesk, from NVIDIA, and everybody is like developing that. So I think we will probably have it sooner or later. But in my opinion, there's not a lot of value in having these tools before we reach some kind of a wisdom of how we utilize AI in the first place. Like, for example, I'm like in this shape, I'm not really interested in creating it in real life. Like, because this is not a really architecturally solid solution for a facade, right? Yeah, it looks good, but like, how people will live there, right? Like, what problem is it really solving? It's like the same thing with like, I don't know, like if we're talking about like the same thing with the project that I worked on, like was like I sound very critical. I don't like to sound like that. Like we're talking about this building, right? Okay, now so this is like really built in real life. Like what's the value of that building? Like it looks good, but then what? You know what I mean? It's just like I don't think like everything that is beautiful should be built, in my opinion. And with AI, I think that we need to really understand or like try to utilize AI in a way that can generate something that is meaningful. So these things, like these designs that you can see here, yeah, this maybe look fantastic. Yeah, and everybody will like it. If I built it in real life, would it really help people? Would it really be a good space? You know what I mean? This is not architecture. So I don't know, like for me, I'm not really in a hurry uh to have like an AI 3D. No, we're not there yet. We haven't. I haven't. I don't like most of the AI work, including mine, to be honest with you. So like, if we have AI 3D right now, it might be a problem. It might not be a good thing. It actually might be a problem. To generate these forms, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they are good or bad. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I got your idea. It's
True, صراحة.
it's a some of the
Some,
forms,
yeah,
some of them AI are just deserve to be, like an art base only.
Yes.
But like sometimes as an architect, you can't skip or elude the idea that one day you can text and the entire building popping up, whether the design or the function part of it. Some of this is actually been happening right now, but with this level of artificial intelligence, specifically in the facade design and the external, an external design of it, it will be an interesting to have it back directly or, to be done immediately within a couple of seconds. Giving the options or giving the opportunity that you can make almost a limitless amount of designs using AI in a very rapid and a short amount of time if you compare it to the manual digital way, or let's call it the traditional digital way,
Mhm.
if you know what I mean.
No, I
But
agree. I agree. It's a great automation tool, but like my problem is that with the current practice in architecture, with the real practice, these
yep,
technologies are often used in the wrong way. Like yeah, of course, if you have like AI to 3D now, you can streamline ideas. You can like save time and thinking more about like the philosophies. You can think about. You don't have to. Um, it will make the work more central. It will have less errors. You can focus on like environmental aspects. You can focus on structural aspects, of course. Yes, but
yep,
the real world is not like that. That's my point. Like no, like I like in architectural firms, like most of the architecture firms, they don't operate in that sense. Like the architectural scene right now, it's not great. That's why I actually like stopped working as an architect and now try to do this, just like to explore what this is about. The architectural practice is not in a good place, and like I have concerns about like what the technology will do more to that practice. So, but yeah, I agree. Like this is again, but that doesn't mean that this is like this is a great tool and it could be used in so many good ways. But I don't know. Like for me, if I like and somebody came and told me like, yeah, why we don't build this right now, this form, like I'll come like, I'll be really hesitant.
yep.
So
Got your point. Got your point. Ladies, any other question for Mr. Hassan?
Thank you.
Doctor, I have a question.
Agib, go for it.
Okay,
It's-
السلام عليكم, Hassan.
عليكم
Salam
السلام ورحمة
الله
الله.
وبركاته.
أهلا وسهلا.
It was a really insightful and fruitful lecture. Thank you so much. ويعطيك العافية. So I just wanted to ask about how you mentioned young architects using and learning AI. So I just wanted to mention that it's sort of it's kind of an unspoken dilemma between students and in universities in general with using AI, specifically in the schematic phase. So my question is, what do you think about students using AI in this phase, especially to help generate ideas instead of solely relying on their own creative thinking? And of course, past the foundation architectural phase, like past the design core thing, like first year, second year, what do you think of students actually using AI in the schematic conceptual phase? Like, do you think
Yeah,
it could hinder a student's creative potential?
I'm sorry. Well, can you repeat the last question? Do I think what?
Do you think this could hinder a student's creative potential? And if so, do you
Hmm.
think that AI can affect it negatively or like positively, in your opinion?
That kind of reminds me was like my early years in Film Gamila in Egypt in my school in 2005, and I remember we were not allowed to use AutoCAD for the first 2 years. The first project that we did was actually like to draw and to hand draw and to paint in aquarelle colors the Parthenon and the Erection, the Greek temples. And it's funny enough because this is the same thing that's happening until now. So I gave a lecture in my school last year, and they did the same thing. And I didn't see as like at that point in 2005 or 2006, I didn't see any point of not using the computer. I think actually not using the computer has hindered or is hindering everybody. Because as an architect right now, I don't remember the last time that I really used hand sketching or like paint. I didn't, of course, I didn't paint again. I didn't use aquarelle in my life. This was like the most useless thing that you can do as an architect is to like to right now to use color paintings. Um, and with that sense, again, I'm not an academic, and I understand the dilemma in a way. But again, I'm not in academia. But like these technologies they are moving in such an incredible pace, and I think that and like I've been doing that for at least 3 years now, but I've been in computational design for about like 15 years or so. And you can see like I've started using Grasshopper 2009 before like anybody like understand like knows what even like Grasshopper is or like what is computational design or parametric architecture. Like most of the people didn't know, and now it's almost like a mandatory work, like mandatory understanding for most everybody, at least like to know BIM. And again, the technology, like the business or like every workspace will adapt to the technology. They won't adapt to like the old techniques of like architects needs like to master with his hands and like and like I don't think also like like using your hands like makes you more creative in a way. I know some people kind of differ in that point, but I don't think like hand sketching like like can make you more creative now in this digital world. So to answer your questions, I think that if we kept students from using the technology, the students will use it one way or another. So it's like I get like now I think like the younger generations they pick up on the technology much faster than the older generations. So I think like if there are students here that are listening to me right now, they are more um adaptable to technology than me right now. I'm almost 40 years old right now, and I think like anybody from the younger generation, like who's in like in Gen Z, uh, or even like I don't know, like even the younger generations, they can now like understand technology much faster than me. So for me to keep them away from the technology is not, it doesn't make sense. And I think like again, AI is a creative partner. So if you like, AI can actually make you more creative, in my opinion. So I don't think that not using AI will make them less creative, or maybe not less creative in the context that we're living in. Maybe that will make sense, like 20 or 30 years ago. But at that age, that's not my opinion. But again, I'm not in academia, so. And also, like again, one last thing, I I did like studio reviews for like some schools, whether in Brazil or here in the United States, or I think like somewhere else, I don't remember where. And like those who adapt to technology, they get much like they are on another level. The students are much more creative. They like the concepts and like they are just like more ready for the marketplace. They are more ready to understand what architecture is. So no, like technology is an essential part, and it should be learned from day one in the schools. My
Many thanks again, Mr. Hassan, for this insights. I do believe that we passed the time by 5 minutes, and we definitely sorry for that. We appreciate your time, and thank you very much again for this valuable information you provided for us with this presentation. Thanks again, and deeply appreciate it.
Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you, Firas. Thank you, Nashwa. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very
يعطيك
much.
العافية. شكرا.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Shukran.
باي باي.
Have
مع
a lovely
السلامة.
day.
باي باي.
مع
Bye
السلامة.
bye. Bye.